Welcome back, guys. Well, I didn't get out much this last weekend, so I thought I'd do a video of our bedroom and just kind of show you all the bucks that we've shot and the trophies that we found, deadheads and sheds and stuff. So I've been wanting to do this video for a while, but I haven't got to it, and I thought this would probably be a good time. So let's just go through here and I'll show you our wall here. Alright guys, so here it is. This is where we have been stacking all of our bucks and our trophies that we've been shooting over the years and collecting. So all of our hard-earned work, this is kind of where it goes. But I guess we'll go through the coos deer sheds first here. Just a few of the good ones that I found. We can kind of go through some of the stories, but this one right here, I found. Me and my two older brothers went shed hunting, and it was like almost the only time my oldest brother goes shed hunting with us, and we pick up like a ton of coos deer sheds. But that's one good one right there. I think he scored right around 108, 109. I think it was about 108, something like that. But just a real nice, kind of a 3x frame. And this one's almost kind of like a kicker kicking out the back there, but just a really good shed. And then this one I found in the same area, the same shed hunt. Just this thing's, I think this is my biggest coos deer shed that I have. Just massive eye guard. I think it's close to 5 inches. It's been a while since I've scored it. But just big, long tines. But I was super stoked to pick that thing up. Starting little kicker there, but just a beautiful, beautiful buck. My older brother actually found a shed almost identical to this one on that same shed hunt, and it's the same side, but we didn't end up finding the other side. So this one scored, I believe, right around 110. We guessed it at with the width. So this one I picked up not too long ago. I think it's the longest eye guard shed I've ever picked up. Just a real big frame. Pretty sweet, and it's nice and new. It's not old or anything, so that's another one of my favorites. And this guy is just got tons of mass. Like for a coos deer, this thing is just a toad. This one, it didn't score a ton, doesn't have a ton of tine length, and his beam's a little shorter, but I think it scored still right over 100 somewhere. But just a beautiful buck. I'd love to see that thing alive. Really cool shed. And then there's some down here we'll get into. Alright, so here's some of the other ones. Here's a set. Me and my little brother actually have this one on my YouTube channel. They'll be on the thumbnail if you want to find that one. But we go way up in high country, and we're hiking down this trail, and we kind of stopped, and we were just glassing for deer. It was pretty early in the morning, and we stop and glass, and just, you know how like the sun's just perfect sometimes. And I believe it was this shed. It was laying way down there, way down, like, I don't know, probably like almost 1,000 feet down on this ledge, like way down there. And I just see it right there, just right in the wide open. Glassed it up, and I was like, dude, there's a big shed down there. It looked real big, but that was we got down there, picked it up, and went across the canyon, and fortunately we found this thing, which was pretty crazy because they were a good ways apart, but I mean, they could have been anywhere, and it was super steep, gnarly stuff, but ended up finding both of them. So that would have been a pretty decent buck there. So that was pretty cool. Here's another high country buck, and I believe this is the same buck. If you just kind of look how they curve and stuff, really looks pretty much identical with the small eye guard and everything. But this one was a nice brown. I got this one on my channel. I believe I've got this one too. But a friend of mine actually, he hunted up there, and he actually shot this buck in velvet. So I'm pretty positive, like, we've looked at pictures and compared them, and I'm pretty positive he shot this buck. And he was just a big typical 3x, and I believe his tine on the velvet where he shot, when he shot it in velvet, this tine was about 9 inches long. I think this one's close to it, but this tine was longer, and he scored, I think, 108 or 109. But just a really nice high country buck. So that was pretty cool to find two years off the same buck. And then this set here is just a really cool, tight curled, thick and heavy fork. Me and Justin, my older brother, we went shed hunting. It was like one of our first coos deer shed hunts. And I picked up one of them and we're like, dude, yeah. It was actually one of the bigger ones we had found in that trip. And I ended up finding the other side. It was like with some bones and stuff. But I was very fortunate to pick that set up. Just a cool looking buck. I don't know if he was just really old or if it was just the genetics, but just really thick, bladed out right here. Really cool buck. Stubby, thick eye guards. But that's pretty sweet. And then there's another pretty cool one. It's pretty chalky, but it's one of the first one I found with a big old fork in the back. Good eye guard. Just really cool mass all around. So that's another cool buck. And yeah, I think that's most of them for the coos deer the coos deer shed. Here's one coos deer dead I found recently. Just a really cool, I think he was probably an old buck. He's got like a hole in the back of his antler right there. And this is just really weird. I don't know if he completely broke himself in velvet or I'm not sure what causes that exactly, but that's pretty sweet to find something like that. This is the first one I've ever found like that. But just really good mass on the bases, but just really short on his tines. Good eye guards. So that was a pretty sweet one to find. And so yeah, we'll maybe go into the mule deer sheds. Alrighty, so let's see here. We got this big set I just found recently. You can go back and check that out on my channel. Just the biggest set I've ever found. I think it's the only mule deer shed I think I've ever found. I've picked up a lot of mule deer sheds, but I have not been good at finding sets at all. But that's one big one I found. He would have scored, I guessed him with this, guessing this point, he would have been right around 180. Just a giant. Too bad he's broken there, but oh well. Just a big old monster desert muley. But that was pretty sweet to pick up. Just walked around the corner and they're both laying there. Here's some other sets we found. Just walking the flat desert out in the bushes. Jared picked up this side. I think I picked up this side first. And me and Jesse went on a big long shed hunt. Didn't find hardly anything and got back closer to the truck and found that one, which was pretty sweet. So I found this one and then I forget how many days later, but Jared ended up finding this one, which is sweet. It's really cool buck, just kind of really cool character, especially on this side. Got that big old kicker there between the forks, and the eye guards are almost the same kind of. They kind of both hook forward a little bit, but just a really cool, that's a really nice buck too. I haven't scored him in a long time. I should try it. Need to score him again, but just a really nice buck. We actually I have like a few videos of that buck when he was in velvet, and he was really big then too. So this was pretty special set because this was actually the first brown shed I've ever found. Me and Jesse went out, found a few sheds, chalky ones, and I knew they were dropping there at that time. And seen that laying out there in the barren, dry desert out there. It was pretty sweet. Just good mass. He's kind of flat on his beam. Kind of cool eye guard there. Big base. Just a really sweet shed. And then me and Jared went out, I think it was about a week later or so, maybe a few days later. And he ended up picking up the other side, which was not far away from this one. Just, I don't know, several hundred yards or so. But we were not expecting that the other side would look like that. I mean, forked on every tip. It was pretty sweet. We were hiking along and Jared just goes crazy. Dude, I got a monster. Time's going everywhere. But he almost started a drop time there. Not sure. I've never seen this buck, but just a really cool buck with some sweet character. Would have been a really cool looking buck for sure. He's even starting to try to fork there, but awesome looking buck. And This one is the biggest shed we have to date for mule deer, the biggest scoring. I believe it scored 83 by itself. So we were guessing it'd be like right around 190 buck, but just a huge, massive, thick fork. I mean, he's pretty old. He's got some big cracks in him, but just big, got a lot of mass. Really cool eye guard kicker there, whatever that is. Pretty decent base, not real big, but just a big, typical with kickers everywhere. So I was super stoked to find it. Justin, my older brother, would have found this, and he called me over because there was some pigs, and I always like to woof at them and kind of call them in, see how close we can get to them. And so I kind of cut over by my older brother, Justin, and I look up and this thing just, the tips are just sticking out of the grass like about this much. I was like, this is a big shed right there. He wasn't too happy that I found it right in front of him. It was still kind of funny. Really cool shed. This one is a really nice shed we found not too far from our place in a field. We were driving around the pivot a long time ago when we kind of just got in the shed hunting, and they had just shedded not too long ago, and we're driving around this pivot, and Jesse's like, is that a shed out there? I was like, dude, yeah, that's a shed. And it's just laying right out there in the field. Like, it was just real short wheat, I think, in the field. And it was just laying there like that, tines down. Just a big, giant 4x brownie. It was so cool. He was probably really fresh when we picked him up, but just a really cool buck. I almost think I seen him when he was alive, but not sure. But that's one of our favorites we got in here for sure. Just some more of our singles that we found. So this shed is by far one of my favorite. This thing's just got mass everywhere. I mean, it's not like a ton, but he's just solid. Super solid buck. Good eye guard. All gnarly. I think it's just a year-old shed. But this was actually, I believe, the first 4x shed I've ever picked up. I think he'd score about 165 or something like that. But just a beautiful, heavy, heavy buck. But I'm pretty sure I know who shot him. But just a really nice buck. Good base, gnarly. By far one of my favorite sheds to hold. And then Jared picked up this one. Just a really good, big fork, typical 4x. Really nice. It was like by far one of his best sheds he's picked up for 4x. Real close to where I picked up that other real big 180 set. Kind of in the same area. And this one picked up kind of in the same area as this one. This big one. We went up shed hunting and walked around the bush, and that thing was laying there. Just huge back fork. I mean, for out here, for desert muley, that's just a giant. But yeah, definitely, I love that huge back fork. Another one of my sweet sheds. So that's most of the mule deer sheds. We had a lot more stacked in here, but we went through them not too long ago and picked out a bunch of the ones we never looked at. Probably took over 2/3 of our stack away, but anyways. And then we got a few elk sheds. This is my biggest, best brown so far. It's not that big, but I was stoked to find it. It's got decent mass for its size. Good mass. Just a really nice brown shed. No broken tines or anything, but I got to get out there and find some bigger ones. I'm dying to find some big ones. He's still a little bloody on the base there, but just a pretty sweet shed. Then we got, this one's really cool. Picked this one up down in this big canyon. Just got nice fronts, good third, but his back end is really cool. I was stoked to pick that thing up. I think it was the first first elk shed I've ever glassed up. But I kind of just got into it this year and hoping to do some more, pick up some more of these bad boys. So but it's really cool. On 2 different shed hunts, we picked up this one not too long ago. I think it's like only 2 videos ago or something like that. But just a beast of a shed on this side, real chalky, but look how symmetrical those front tines are. It's crazy, because these are definitely not off the same bull. They're way far apart, different years. They just really look almost identical. And the back ends almost do the same thing. It's crazy. Big 3 front tines with the kind of weird back end, but it's pretty sweet to pick up. It's pretty chalky, but I just had to bring it home. It's pretty dense too. But anyway, don't have a whole lot of good elk sheds yet, but hopefully we'll change that here soon. All right, now for the deadheads. Not all these are deadheads. A lot of them are deadheads, but some of these are the bucks that we've shot. So I'll kind of go through and see. We'll start on this end down here. So this coos buck is a deadhead I picked up not too long ago. Just a decent little guy. This is Jared's first buck he's ever shot. I believe it scored 94 or 96. I think it was 96. Just a nice coos buck. Good typical 3x. Just a nice little buck. Another little deadhead I picked up. Kind of cool with the long eye guard. This one right here is really cool buck. Jared shot this one with his bow. Just a really cool big frame 3x4. Really, really cool. His back tine is just super long. But that was, I believe, his second buck with a bow. Really nice. It was really cool. It was like the only time it snows in Arizona, we go out there and we're like, all right, we're gonna try. So we go out there, glassed up a few bucks. It was getting close to the end of the hunt. Glassed up a few bucks. And we didn't see this one. And there was some other smaller ones we were gonna go after. And so we were walking over towards them. And Jared's like, there's a buck following us or something. He could hear something behind us. So I glassed back and this thing's coming just straight toward us, like almost right where we came from. I don't know where he came from, but he was almost coming down our tracks that we walked over these few little ridges. And he ended up coming up real close. He came up real close and I was just grunting at him like, and he ended up coming up to like 50 yards. And Jared shot, and Jared's bow at the time was pretty slow. And he shot and he jumped sideways and the arrow cleanly missed him. And then he walked down the bush and I was grunting at him and he just raked the bush and grunt and look at us and rake the bush and look at us. I think he thought we were a buck or something, because we were kind of a dark color up against the snow. And he was definitely ready to fight somebody, but he came up and I kept grunting on at him and he came up to 35 yards, like almost, I don't know how it happened. The Lord helped us a lot, but I mean, it was obviously the Lord, but he came up to 35 yards. Me and Jared are sitting there like in the wide open snow. The snow was super crunchy, so we weren't sure how we were going to stalk any bugs because it was so loud. But he came up 35 yards and Jared stuck him and he went like, I don't know, 60 yards or so and fell over dead, just blood everywhere. Really cool story. That was definitely one of my favorite hunts. And then this buck up here, that's I believe my third mule deer buck with a bow. Just a really cool buck. That one I got with a tumbleweed. I used the tumbleweed to go out into the field, and it was getting toward the end of the day, and he was just coming out into the field, and it's kind of dusty, but like he's not a giant, but he was coming out into the field and he was out there with a bunch of does. Like there was a bunch of does out there, and I had my truck parked. My truck was kind of between me and the deer, and so I go out there and there's this big old tumbleweed by my truck, and so I snuck up to my truck, grabbed the tumbleweed, and I'm like, well, I'm just gonna try it. It's almost getting dark, so I got behind this tumbleweed and snuck probably, I don't know, 200-300 yards on my knees, and just walking on my knees for a long time. I walked on my feet for a while and then on my knees, and I just walked right out, and I mean the field was only maybe that high of alfalfa, and I just walked right out there on my knees behind this tumbleweed, and the deer were kind of feeding past me. They could kind of see a little bit of me as they were going by. They were kind of suspicious, but I get up and they look, and I'm right in the open field, and I kneel down, and they start feeding again, and this buck was chasing a doe, and he chased her farther and farther away, and I was just trying to get closer really fast because it was getting dark. And finally his doe came in and went right past me about 30 some yards, and I stuck him right about in the top of the heart, and he went down real quick even before he got out of the field. But it was the first buck with a inline on the one side that we've ever shot, so that was really cool. I believe he scored around 146 is what this one scored, I think. 146, 147. This one scored 150 something, I believe. I think it was about 151. Maybe a little bigger, but anyways, just a really cool story on that one. That was a lot of fun. This was, I believe, my second mule deer with a bow. Good buck. It was I snuck up on him, and I was waiting behind these big tumbleweeds, and I waited 5 hours. It was about 5 hours before he came out of his bedded area in his big tumbleweed thicket, but he finally came out and I got him. So just another really nice, decent buck. Not very much mass, but just good frame, good buck. And let's see here, just some other coos deer deadheads I picked up. That one up there is Jared's buck. He shot one of his rifle mule deer. Good little 3x4, or actually it's 4x4. Broken off there a little bit, but just a nice buck. Here's Jared's first mule deer with the bow. Nice little 3x4. Another nice little first buck. That's another little deadhead. This one right here, this was crazy. We were walking through this extremely thick, like saccatone grass, so it was really high, like I couldn't see anything. And I was walking through and my boot just clipped this tip right here. And I would never seen it. I walked right over it, and it was buried in the grass about this high. So all I could see pretty much was these tines sticking out. My boot just barely clipped it, and I looked back and I see these tines sticking out. I was like, dude, yeah. And I pulled it out, and I mean, it's, yeah, by far the biggest deadhead I've ever found. It scored right about 179 3/4, right about 180. But I don't know what made this happen, or if he hurt himself there or what, but I mean, this tine is just, and that's probably over 12 inches right there. Huge front fork. Just a good, super wide buck. Big buck. And he was just buried in there in the grass. This was, I think this is my first deadhead I've ever found. And he was pretty rotted up and stuff, but I got him cleaned up decently good. Just a giant. We were like, you gotta be kidding me. The first deadhead I pull out, and this thing's just huge. I couldn't believe my eyes. We were going crazy. Just a massive buck. But anyways, just monster wide buck. Biggest deadhead I've found right there. Pretty sweet. This one right here is a deadhead. I got this one on my channel when I picked this one up. He was really just a really pretty wide 3x4. Decent mass. Just a really good, another good desert buck. Another cool deadhead I picked up. 3x4 coos deer. All these little ones are coos deer in between. This one right here was really cool. Me and Jared went out shed hunting, and I felt so bad because I'm sure all of you guys know when you go shed hunting and your buddy picks up a lot of sheds and you're not picking up any. Well, it was one of my good days, and Jared only found one fork kind of at the beginning of the hunt, and we went way out there, and I was picking up sheds most of the time. I felt so bad for him, the poor guy. And I seen this, it was laying like this, and I was like, oh, I think it's a big 4x shed. And he came over, and he was hardly happy for me to find it, because I know how bad it stinks when people are picking up sheds left and right, and you just cannot pick them up. It's a bad feeling, but this thing's just got some crazy character, huge base on this side. Really gnarly stuff going on with the eye guards here. He's all bladed right here. Really cool. And again, just a big old kicker thing right there. But just a really cool buck. He scored like 170. Really, really cool character on that buck. One of my favorite deadheads. And then on my channel, I got this one. I don't have the shot on camera, but this is Jesse's. I believe, yeah, this is Jesse's first archery buck, and just a really nice 4x4. Actually scored a lot bigger than I thought he would, but scored around 163, I think it was. Really nice buck. 165 or 163, I forget, but really good mass right here. Just a good typical buck. Got him all by himself, went out there and shot this thing. Super nice buck, especially for a first buck. That's a big one right there. That was awesome. He was so pumped about that. Really gnarly bases, really, really cool buck. And then this is another deadhead I found. Me and Justin went out. I picked that up, kind of seen something, glassed it up. Sure enough, it was a deadhead sticking out, but the first deadhead I found with a little drop tine on it there. But just a really cool buck. He's got a real big front fork on this side and a really big eye guard. Like the biggest eye guard I think I've seen on a mule deer. But just a really nice typical, again, little Coos deer deadhead. This is Jesse's second Coos deer buck he shot. Pretty cool little buck with the 3 on that side. Good little buck. This is my first deer I've ever shot. This little Coos deer here. I believe it scored around 96, 98, something like that. Just a good typical 3x. My first buck ever. It was kind of crazy, but I got out there and Mike and my brother-in-law and my older brother Jalen, we went out hunting. It was like my first hunt that we actually had seen bucks. I went on a hunt before, but I didn't see like anything. I don't think we seen one buck like the whole hunt. My brother-in-law's kind of who got me into hunting somewhat, but he was trying out a new unit and we did not end up seeing like any bucks at all. But this was my second hunt that I got drawn for. And we get out there and this buck's like, it was first morning, we were glassing around, seeing some smaller ones, and I hear this doe like bark over here. She snorted, she already heard us. She was blowing at us and she was running up the hill and I glassed over there. I was like, I think it's a nice buck. I didn't really know. And so Mike glasses over there and he's like, it's a nice buck, nice buck. And so we get up, set up and everything. And he was like around 400 yards right then. But he ended up going over the top of the hill, so he got down, got up on another ridge, and he ended up coming out, and he was just pretty much walking slowly there. And he stopped, and I got a good shot at him it was right around 500 yards. I double lunged him. He went behind the bush and toppled over pretty quick, so really cool. Nice Coos deer buck for my first one. I was very happy with it. And then this here is my first ever archery mule deer. Just a good 4x4. We were watching him for a long time. I was going out like every other day. I'd go out, hike like a mile or so out to this hill and glass. He was way out in the flats and he was showing up. I mean, every time I go out there, I could usually glass him up. And then some guy, I think, went driving out there in the flats and spooked. There was this buck and another decent buck. Spooked him way out there, and then eventually I never seen him right before the hunt started. He like disappeared and I didn't know where he went. And so we hunted a few other bucks, or I got a few stocks in on other bucks and stuff, or maybe just one stock, but we ended up finding him like a totally different area. He's probably like 6-7 miles away from where I first was watching him, and he ended up showing up, and I was like, no way, that's the buck we've been watching way over there. And he was with a bunch of does. He kind of went over on this hill. I tried to get in on him, spooked him over on up to this hill, and my little brother was up on the hill watching. So I went up there with my little brother. We got him bedded down, and the does kind of fed off, and he was still bedded. And he had a pretty bad limp. I'm not sure why, but he had a pretty bad limp. And Jesse was up watching through the spotting scope. It was like a mile away. This hill's like a mile away from where he was bedded from where we were. And so I get him on, like I show him where I think what I could see just his antlers coming out of the bushes. And I showed him, and he thought he seen the antlers. So I go over there, and I just got a radio. He can talk to me through the radio. And I go over there, get up pretty close to him, and he's trying to guide me in. And here, he was seeing something else, so he was guiding me into the wrong spot. But it was kind of funny. I was like, oh, there ain't nothing here. And so I ended up turning it off and going where I thought he was. And I ended up getting up on him like 25 yards. It was my first time ever. He finally stood up, went behind the bush. I kind of took a quick shot, but I got him. He didn't go like 20 yards and just fell over backwards dead. It was so sweet. I actually turned off my radio just so Jesse wouldn't be talking, and it was kind of loud because I was so close to the buck. I turned on the radio, and Jesse's like, oh, yeah, nice. So it was super awesome experience to shoot that thing and get my first mule deer buck. Because I didn't get drawn for coos deer, and I was like, well, I'll just buy a bow and see if I can get a mule deer, because I can get over counter tag down here in Arizona. So that was my first buck. So anyways, I think that about covers it all. Yeah, here's my last mule deer buck. If you haven't been watching my videos, just another really nice mule deer. Big 4x, typical, my biggest buck ever shot with a bow. Got him this January, so so thankful for that buck. It worked out so perfect. I got a video on my YouTube channel. Just go back several videos and you can see me shoot this thing. I go pretty crazy. It's pretty funny to see the reaction, but just big, heavy beams all the way out. I was so pumped to shoot this thing and so blessed. But just a really nice buck. He's in the taxidermy right now. I asked him if he could skin him out, and I keep the rack while they're tanning the hide and stuff. But then this is a Javelina Skull. My little brother shot this. It was his first archery, first Javelina actually. His first Javelina ever. It was in January 18th, 2018. So he shot this a while back, but it was kind of funny because he was pretty young then and he couldn't pull my bow back. And so I'd have to help him pull it back. We shot a few times at the target, and you can usually get really close to these things. So we shot it a few times at like 20, 30 yards. And we ended up getting in pretty close to this one. I think it was around 30 yards. He comes out. I was like, okay, pull it back. And I helped him pull it back. So we like both had to pull the bow back. And then he shot him and got him. So it was actually a really big boar, but big old tusk on that thing. It's pretty sweet. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed some of this. Here's one more other thing. Me and Jared, if you haven't seen Jared's big coos deer buck he shot last year, really nice 113 buck, just giant 3x4 coos deer. Go check that out on my channel also. But here's one of his brown sets that Jared found. Just a really, really cool 3x3 set. He found it right in the bottom of a dried up water hole, laying down there in the weeds. He was really pumped to pick that thing up. And he hadn't found a good shed for a long time, and he was like shaking so bad when he found those things. Well, but anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed checking out all my stuff. I kind of been wanting to show you guys all this. Haven't got it done yet. So hope you guys enjoyed it. This is what I love to do, and hope to do a lot more of it this year. So thanks for watching, guys. If you guys feel free to share it with your friends and family, And if you got any questions, put them in the comments below. Give me any comments below of any ideas you want me to do for a video, any shed hunts or anything like that. Just let me know. And thanks for watching, guys. Please give me a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks for watching, guys.